But yeah, I know whenever you're with us, we're always talking finance, but with this, we're talking about how to do a podcast. And
Yeah.
I can't think of anybody better. And I sent y'all, I don't know if you didn't have time, that's fine, but I did send y'all the requirements. And they're making a 3 to 5 minute podcast where they are reviewing an item that teenagers use. And I think they're leaning more towards a cell phone.
Cool.
So we were just wanting to get some ideas of how a podcast is put together, how it's written, and things you guys do as far as how you plan it, that you script it, any technical stuff you might think would be useful, or things along those lines.
Okay. Yeah. So first off, let me actually share my screen.
Oh, sure, go
Hold
ahead.
on. Let's see. Screen. This one. Okay. You see that?
I do.
Oops. Okay. So first off, Natasha is kind of the brainchild of the outline that we follow, the
Uh-huh.
script. We don't actually use a script. We
Wow.
kind of just freestyle it for the most part, which I'm not very good at. So I have to I end up having to do a lot of editing after the fact. But Natasha's very good at that, and she comes up with the script, and she's the one who's more familiar with the subject matter. So this is a podcast that we did just the other day, and you can see it's from our template, and we've gotten kind of lazy about it because this is already close to our 50th one, so we're pretty seasoned with it now. But for the first one, you'll want to probably obviously practice, filling this all out, right? Going
Uh-huh.
through the motions is kind of like practicing for a game, right? Um, and this is our format. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Y'all probably can't see it that well, right?
Okay, I see it.
Okay. So one of the first thing that we do is we have a hook or a short story. And when we first started recording, what we would do is we would come up with like a quick pitch for the episode. And that's where that would sit. It would be like a quick 30-minute, blurb about what it's about or the importance of it. We stopped doing that just because it takes longer. And we often found that if we extract a bit of the audio from the actual episode
Oh,
in the first, very first 30 seconds, it's often good. And that story is taken usually from like one of the stories that we tell.
wow.
Uh,
I didn't think about that. I mean, obviously our kids are pretty and they're about to join us too. They're pretty familiar with those programs. So I never
okay,
thought
cool.
about you record it and then you go back and you take things out to make it shorter. I guess that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And it's usually like, we have the intro music, and the music will cut in like at a point to basically give it interest. Like you're like, kind of left hanging, right? It's a cliffhanger
Yeah.
on that, on that hook. But after that, it's, usually Natasha will talk and introduce the topic and usually, kind of give an opinion. And then we just kind of get into it, right?
Yeah.
And with this one, we were talking with a guest. The guest's name was Sharifa. And let's see, we've got some things to do pre-meeting. So this probably won't be relevant for y'all. This is like our one that we use when we're talking with a guest.
Uh-huh.
But obviously we have some steps to remember, right? Um, and this probably applies for y'all as well. Oh, well, you said y'all are familiar with those programs, right? Do y'all probably do recording and y'all are familiar with?
Yeah, it's because a lot of the kids that are doing it are part of our digital media academy. So
Okay, okay,
yeah, that they're all into these into these new certs. So, and like I said, they should be here any minute, and she could tell you a little bit more about the program they use. Uh,
okay. Yeah, that sounds good because it's kind of an acquired thing, right? Uh, doing this does take a little bit of skill, so that's good that they have that practice already. Um, obviously you're going to want to silence everything, no cell phones, uh, and then you just get into it. You just start talking. And for this one, it's very short. Like, this is the extent of it. This is like our outline. So we typically just mention some questions. Like this is the kind of the questions or the topics that we tend to throw out, and then we just kind of see where it goes. Um, like we're both pretty old, so we have a fair amount of life experience to be able to to inject stories or inject humor, which is important, and also try and teach something. Uh, I was reading a book recently called How to Tell a Story, and it was by uh, like a group, a collective of people who host storytelling events. And the group is called the Moth, and the name is significant because what they say is that with your storytelling, you start and end, and in between that process, you start your story, then end your story, and in between that, there has to be a transformation, right? Like, like I did this, this happened, this is what I learned, this is what I took from it. So, like that's kind of what we try to do. We have an idea, and this idea here was to pitch this event that Natasha's going to appear on called
Oh, wow.
it's gonna be called Money Talks. I'm not sure where we mentioned it here. Yeah, Money Talks by the New Wave Foundation. So
wow.
with it, like Natasha was basically interviewing the lady that's over it, and she has this nonprofit organization to to help minorities with their finances, and this is like one of the big events, like the Keystone event that they have. And Natasha's like asking her questions about her personal life. She'll ask about this event, of course, right? Because that's what she wants to pitch and to socialize. But then Natasha will ask her, like, give me a personal story. I want to get to know you. And that's kind of the hard part, right? It's letting the speaker come through and let them share a piece of themselves authentically. So yeah, our outlines are really short, and Natasha she'll kind of drive the direction of them. And sometimes we record and it's kind of trash and we have to start over. We go back to the drawing board, and that's fine. It's not time wasted. It's just part of the process. But yeah, after the outline is drafted, Natasha will work on that for maybe 30 minutes to an hour. Then we'll just start recording, and recording looks very much like it does now. We use this program called Reaper, which is probably different than the one y'all use, but it would probably look the same.
Okay.
This is the actual podcast that's going out tomorrow. And the way that I do it, I do all the stuff after the recording. I do the recording, and then I do all the post processing as well. And what I do is I line up all the speakers. So here's me on the top in yellow. Let's see if I can make it a little bigger too. Here's Natasha in the pink, and you can see Natasha's like, she talks a lot more than me. So, and this is Sharifa. This is the lady we recorded. And the way that I do it is I do a lot of editing to remove filler words like, a lot of people have this tendency to click with their mouths too when they're about to speak, like, like that. So I remove all that stuff because it kind of comes out a little bit harsh at the very end, because I'm also running all the audio through filters to make it sound cleaner. And when you do that, like, that really registers at the end. So that's like a level of refinement that I wouldn't necessarily recommend for y'all's purposes, but it's something that y'all could do if y'all are interested in that.
Okay.
But I would recommend at least playing with it like this. So like one of the things that I do is I'll like, for example, okay, first let me start. Really important is to take all the pieces of audio and line them up and work with them all three together. And this took me a long time to figure out. So you find a way to select them all, and like you work with them all together at the same. You can sit down, babe. Natasha's here now.
Oh, cool.
We've had a bit of a cold snap. So.
Yeah. Oh, we have too. And this is Dina Smith. She's here at the school with me. She's the other sponsor for the Technology Student Association. She's our digital media teacher, and I don't know where she went. And she's got some students there with her, and they're looking on with this as well. But this is some great stuff, and she can answer questions more about the programs they use for audio.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that'll be good. In any fashion, like, they're all going to be relatively similar, though. Mm-hmm. I would imagine that what the students will be working with is going to be, it may not be the same one, but it'll look very similar, I imagine. And they call them multi-track editors, where you work with the audio independently for each track. And, you use this for like a band, right? Like, you can imagine this would be drums, this would be guitar, this would be bass guitar, and then, like vocals or whatever, but we use it just for podcasting. And, you know, what you do is you want to zero in. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut all these 3 audio segments and, you know, work with them together, right? So like if I wanted to remove a filler word like like or something like that, what I would do is I would cut it like that and then just cover up a piece of that. And, you know, then start to crossfade if I can. Just make it sound natural, right?
Yeah, because I was even noticing that, you know, whenever I listened, that there's really not any breaks in it. So I was either like, you guys are incredible speakers, or they're doing
No.
something on
Yeah,
post.
we're not. Natasha is really good. Like Natasha, I rarely have to edit, but you know, like I'll stutter a lot or I'll lose my train of thought pretty easily. So I do have to go back and edit myself quite a bit to make it to make it sound like it flows.
Well, you guys do a great job, because I always, whenever I listen, I'm always like, wow, they're really smooth.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's sometimes it's a lot of work on my behalf, but often you know, you get better at it too. So that brings me to something that Natasha had wanted to suggest, and that was to practice, right? We talked about the outline a minute ago. I lost it.
Over there. Sure, the outline.
This one. Yeah, we talked about the outline. And what I would recommend is the students go through it multiple times. In that book that I was reading, the How to Tell a Story, they talked about telling a story one time and tell it for 1 minute and give all the details that you could remember. And then after you're done with that, take that same story and then tell it for 3 minutes, right? Give more details.
Wow.
And it's the same thing, right? Like you want to practice this a few times, and then you want to scale it back and then do it with as little information as you can, right? You say it succinctly and you say it very precisely. But that's hard, you know, like if you don't actually go through the motions first, you have to practice.
Yeah. Now, and also, you guys have a catchy intro and outro music. So how did that come about? I mean, obviously it's original, but how was it made? Because it is a really cool little hook.
That was by a recording artist, actually. His name is Kamal.
Okay.
And
he offers jingles. So he offers like 15-second to 60-second jingles. And I think back then it was probably like $30 or something for a 15-second jingle. And we were like, hey, we have this podcast. We'd love for you to do an intro for it. And he's like, yeah, just send me a couple of words you want me to say. And then he just created it for us. And I mean, all we had to do was tell him, hey, we wanted to say, let's make green together. And he ran with it.
yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and our and Miss Smith could tell you more about this as well. Our kids would have that capability as well, because I think that does add more of a professional sounding touch to have something like that. So they have, I mean, they're still in the planning stages, but to have that title and then to tie in a jingle at the beginning and end with that title, I think sounds really professional.
Yeah, especially looking at the outline for what they were asking. They wanted originality in the podcast, and they wanted it to stand out. So I think if the kids could really add in some type of musical element, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Natasha, before you came on, I was telling Damian that like, and I appreciate you taking any time to look at the outline I sent you, but the kids have come up with, they want to do a podcast about a review of a cell phone. So it's an object that teens use now and in between 3 and 5 minutes, but they were really leaning toward doing the uses of a cell phone in a high school setting.
Nice. Yeah, I think if they can come up with some type of story around the usage of the cell phone, that would be the best thing to do, because when you listen to someone just talking about, you know, giving directions, it's boring. When you listen to them telling a story, when they're able to captivate you with comedy and with, you know, interesting takes on it, that's what's really going to get them, you know, the results they want when it comes to the competition that they're having. So I don't know if Damian mentioned this, but I would recommend having them look up TED Talks, look up comedians that they love, and see, how does that comedian start the joke? How do they end the joke? Like one of the things I love is how comedians they'll tell a joke at the beginning, and then an hour later at the end, they'll come back to that joke and tie it in together. Yeah. So if they can just see, like, how are these other people that I'm really interested in their story, how are they telling that story? What was it that drawed me into it at the beginning? And then once they create their own, tell it to someone and have that person give them feedback and say, what was the most exciting part when we were telling the story? What part did you get bored at? Because maybe that's a part where they can cut it out, because 5 minutes is a really short time. It's gonna go by really fast. So they're gonna have to be real clear and succinct on their message in that short period.
Yeah. Now, Ms. Smith, I know you came in a couple minutes late. I didn't know if you had any questions while we have him here. And she's got some students with her in her room, because we're here at the same school, but we're in different rooms right now. And she's got the kids that will be doing this with her
Awesome.
in her room.
Can they see me?
Yep.
Hey, Miss Smith. We can see
Hey,
you.
how are y'all?
Hi.
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you all so much for taking time to help us with our audio podcast. These are some of my babies. This is 4 of the 6.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
I told you I can't see it, but yeah, I can tell the song. Yeah, I put y'all on. Normally I don't put them on it, so they tickle right now. We did come in late, and I'm so glad that Pikey is recording this, because when we first got on, we couldn't hear you all. So we had to go from my laptop to my iMac. But what do you suggest is a good way for them to address discussing a cell phone? Because there's so many things you can say about cell phones, especially when it comes to high school students.
What drew y'all to the question, or what drew y'all to that subject matter?
Well, the theme is for them to discuss something that high school students use on a daily basis. So it could be anything. Like, we looked at someone in a different district or a different state, and they did toilet tissue.
Okay.
So literally anything that high school students use on a daily basis.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it would be neat to personally, I think it would be cool to see how the students would think that life would function if they didn't have cell phones, and maybe start like with the lack of something. And, maybe then maybe that's a story, or maybe then, that shows you like the important pieces that they want to talk about. And like Natasha said, 3 to 5 minutes. And then if y'all are going to do like a little jingle, that's not a lot of time. So you gotta come up with a compelling story. You have to come up with a good way to tell that story, or, at least a good way to say whatever you're going to say. And it's going to go quickly, like, especially if you have multiple people like talking and speaking.
Okay.
I think that's a cool idea, Damian. I could imagine like a day in the life without the cell phone. So you're kind of taking a different view on it and telling how would life look like if that teenager didn't have a cell phone.
Yeah.
Because for them, cell phones have always been in their lives, which is very different for my age, because that's not how it was.
Yeah.
So I think that would be an interesting story to tell.
Okay. Y'all have a question?
What software do you use?
What software do you use for your podcast?
To record, we record in Reaper, which is a DAW. Some other ones that y'all may have heard of are Audacity, GarageBand, Logic Pro.
Yeah, we have Logic Pro and Audacity.
Cool, yeah. So same sort of deal. You'll have the same functionality. You'll record. I would recommend, if y'all can, when you're recording, I don't know how the students would plan on recording. If they're going to set up with like a microphone like we have here, I don't know if you can kind of see, we have dual microphones like this, right? And we usually don't point them at each other like this. Usually we're like facing each other like this and kind of talking. But another way that I've seen people do it pretty effectively, kind of without the need for as much hardware, is to actually use the headphones, like the iPhone headphones with the little mic on the side. I don't think they really give those away anymore with the phones, but kind of the older ones, to kind of hold the microphone sort of close to their mouth.
To get a good quality sound.
Yeah. Or just take your phone, and use your sound recorder, but like kind of don't hold it like where you're talking directly into it, but like where you're letting the audio just kind of float over it.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm suggesting that is because
she's got a microphone.
Yeah, okay,
Nice.
perfect.
And we have this one, and
Those are the blue ones.
The Blue Yetis. Yeah, nice.
Cool. Yeah, those should work really well. The reason why I'm suggesting the way that the way to do this is if you get up real close to the microphone and you start to say something like pretty or something pretty, like you get a pop, right? And
Right.
if you talk at the same level and you're kind of like letting the audio just sort of skate over the microphone, it's a little bit different. It's like pretty or something, and it's just not as harsh, and then you don't have to process it so much at the end. It makes it easier to work with at the end. So the most you can do before you even start, the better. And it kind of depends too, because everybody sort of talks differently. Like Natasha's settings are all tweaked to her talking style,
Okay.
and mine are obviously different as well. But yeah, I would recommend anything that y'all can do to prevent that harshness at the source.
I would say when it comes to recording the actual content is before you go and record your version of the cell phone one, do several before. Come up with some different topic ideas and do some practice runs recording podcasts, because you're going to find your rhythm as you do it a couple of times. So my suggestion would be not wait and just do this one recording on the day in a life without a cell phone or whatever topic you decide, but to practice, do 5 or 6 different podcasts in that same format, that 5-minute time limit, so that you can kind of get into a rhythm of what does it sound like when we actually create a podcast together. If it's multiple people talking, what's the flow of how do we pick up when one person starts talking, one person stops talking, because that'll be helpful when you go to do the real thing. Is you've got that practice of how to tell the story. You've also got some practice of editing the story. So you're not just putting everything on that one final thing. You've already got practice by doing it a couple of times before that.
Okay. Do you suggest having, I guess, background music, maybe in the beginning or the end? I know not necessarily in the middle. And then if so, would it be better for it to be like I don't want to not say solemn, but something soft?
Yeah.
I say you can definitely have it at the beginning and at the end. We have music at the beginning and the end of ours. And at the beginning, we talk over it a little bit. I have heard some that have music playing throughout the whole time. Personally, as a listener of podcasts, I don't enjoy that at all. Mr. Podcast is agreeing with me.
You're fighting with the music.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but it doesn't necessarily have to be soft or solemn. It can have some flavor to it.
Yeah.
Just adjust the sound of the people talking over it. If you have voices talking over the music, to where you can clearly hear what they're saying, and the music is just a background of it.
Okay.
This is what our intro looks like. Also, if you're curious, like this is the intro audio, like of someone speaking. This is the intro song that we have, and you can see the volume is very low, and then it ramps up at the very end, like when you see that they've stopped speaking.
Right.
You see a sharp ramp up, and then it's just like full volume. And then the outro is sort of the same thing.
The volume of the music is what you're
the volume of
referring
the
to.
music. Yeah, so the volume of the outro is initially off, and then it just comes in real hot at the very end. So it works well. I tried some different techniques. There are other techniques to do it that some broadcasters have, where they speak and then like when they speak, the other audio gets like automatically lowered. The volume gets lowered. They call it auto ducking or sidechain compression. I wouldn't recommend that. This is much easier, and it's more accurate as well.
Okay. We have 6 students in this group. I know for a fact one does not want to talk. Do you have any suggestions for? I know 4 of them will.
Okay.
The best way to have 4 people on a podcast without it being too much?
I think that if you're talking like as if you're students in a casual conversation, I think that's totally normal to have multiple people just chime in real quick, like a friend group, right? Just chatting in a high school setting, high school hallway. But they do need to get their points across quickly, and they do need to, each of them needs to be important to whatever like that story arc is that y'all are trying to tell.
And for
Okay.
me, I kind of reframe it as like a TV show. In a TV show, you have multiple people talking. So you can think of the podcast as like a short episode. It's just an audio episode and of a TV show, but you're doing the audio only. So I think if each person has their different parts during the podcast, then that would be a way to make sure everyone's incorporated and gets to speak. But kind of, shifting how you think about it to where, it's not just a typical podcast, so to speak, as you might listen to, but thinking of it more so from of like a TV storyline perspective.
Okay. Do you have a preference between that one versus I guess a question answer?
Question answer.
Like an interview.
Yeah. I think if you can make the interview interesting, then you could do question answer. My preference would be more of a storytelling format. Because I know just based off of like the outline that Mr. Pygott sent of like what the expectations is, I feel like something that has more originality than just a typical interview style would do well. So if you can come up with a unique way to do like an interview within the podcast, I think that could work as well. But you just got to figure out how can I make it interesting.
Okay. Any questions? No?
I prefer not to talk so I can be on mute. No, keep sniffing.
Just go and talk.
No, I don't got no question though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they hear you.
Y'all can ask us later too. I mean, we're here. So if y'all get into it and then y'all have more questions or need more help or whatever, yeah, feel free to reach out. We're here and we enjoy this stuff. So
Thank you so much.
sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I'll make sure I send them the link because I want them to hear y'all's jingle because it is really cool. And I learned something because, like I said, I was just thinking y'all were just so smooth on when y'all recorded, but
No.
he goes back and edits out the stutters and the pauses to
Yeah.
compress it. I had no idea, and that takes some skill.
So uh-oh.
You also hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
Okay.
It said it quit. That's weird.
Yeah, Zoom said it quit for me.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I hear you. I just don't see you anymore, but it's not the end of the world.
Okay.
Okay. But yeah, like you
Oh, sweet.
okay. We back
Yeah.
on? Can you see
Yeah, I
us?
see you.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's I think it would be more interesting to tell stories and to let it's hard, right? Because like we're talking right now and you can't see us, but this is how you work, right?
Yeah.
And in order to do this, you have to let yourself really shine through with your voice. Your message has to be powerful. The things that you say have to be important.
Mhm.
And you can let it shine through, like the stories that you tell are significant and important, and people do want to hear them. So make them.
You can't say that one either.
Cause I feel like we already
Ask what question?
like since it's so many, it's like what's the best way to keep it flowing? But I feel like we already. We all gotta have
Yeah.
echo.
No.
To keep it flowing so it won't be as many pauses and stuff.
Well, I think that'll come with practice.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is, like we said, go ahead and come up with a script or what everybody's gonna say.
Yeah, script.
I can't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Just the
They're not
beginning,
doing it off the top. They're not gonna do it off the top.
yeah, Miss Smith, at the beginning when y'all were trying to come in, he showed me their outline. I have it all recorded, so you can see the way they outline their episode.
And we
Okay.
can email that to you as well.
Oh,
So
cool.
we
Yeah.
don't have a script. I know I heard the kids asking, like, do you need to have a script? But we do have guiding questions to help us, remind us of where we're going with the
Yeah.
storyline. So you really just got to practice and see how it feels once you start doing it. I mean, honestly, once you do it, you'll know like, oh, I need a little bit more written down before. I need
Yeah.
a little bit more practice here. But it's really just sitting down and doing it. That's what's going to teach you how it's going to flow when you have all those people there.
Mhm.
And the first time you probably gonna go for 20 minutes. You trying to record something for 5 and
Yeah.
you're gonna go for 20. So
It's hard.
Then we cut down. I get it.
Yeah.
yes.
Well, you guys got any more questions while we got them here? I know we're almost out of
Patricia
time. but
thinking.
We're about to be out of school here in a minute anyway.
Gotcha.
Patricia thinking. You sure? Not right now. Not right now. Okay.
And we would love to hear when y'all do your original drafts, and like we'd love to hear them. So send them to us when you get them done.
Yeah.
And they need to follow y'all on Instagram anyway, because you guys are a great follow.
Wait, what's the Instagram?
Trust, they will be there.
Black and brown make green.
No, I heard.
What you do?
What's it
Okay,
called?
what is it?
Black and brown make green.
What is it?
Black and brown make green.
Yeah, I don't think any of them have been in my classes that they've joined us before, so I think this is all new to them.
Oh, nice, nice.
Ask them. They hear you anyway.
Yeah, we could hear you a little bit.
He wants to know, where did you get the name from?
Natasha came up with it, I think.
Yeah, honestly, it just came to me one night. And I'm the black, he's the brown. The goal is to help you make green. So that's just came to me.
Oh, they're cool. Oh.
I think they just figured out that y'all were married because I heard
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, we're
so
married.
He's Mexican and I'm black, so I'm black, he's brown.
Yeah, yeah.
And the money is the green.
Yeah.
Hey, man. Nothing wrong.
Yeah, and that's why we're talking about telling personal stories, is because we've been together for like 15 years or something like that. And a big part of that was figuring out how to manage our money. And that's always been a constant topic. So like that's what we do, is we tell listeners ways to do that, how to manage their money, how to improve their financial skills. And the way that we try to do it is through telling stories, right? We don't just sit there and say, well, step A, go do this. Step B, go do this. And then you have a decision to make, then make your decision. Then you could go down one path or the other. We try to tell the story from our perspective, like we immerse you, like in the decision that we had to make and the mistakes that we actually made, coming to the conclusion that we came to. And that kind of helps support and reinforce the story that we're telling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the guests you have really do a good job of that as well. So, I think that might be a good idea, maybe to have the two main people and then bring in two people's opinions. So again, just a thought. I mean, it has to fit into the time frame, but I think that could be a possible angle as well.
I like that. Yeah.
Well, again, I would love to thank you all for taking out this time, because I heard how busy your schedule is.
Yeah. And also I have some episodes where they've been in the class and they've talked about some of the stuff, so I'd be more than happy to share that as well. And
Please
like
do.
I said, before y'all came in, it's recorded, and we'd love to see the email of the
Outline. Yes, I'm making note of that.
Yeah, and hit us up with any more questions that you have. We could even do this again if y'all want to.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
appreciate it.
Okay. They want to do it again.
Cool, yeah. Sounds good.
Well, y'all have a good afternoon.
Yeah, y'all take care and good luck.
What we'll do is maybe get past that first draft and let them hear it.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
good.
and then we can reconvene after that. That sounds good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I always appreciate you guys' help. You guys are incredible. But I'll definitely talk to y'all soon.
Of course. Thanks, Mr. Pygate.
Sounds good.
Thank
Y'all take care.
See ya.
Bye.